Hello everyone and welcome to our Alumni Talks webinar that will give you first-hand information on Nanyang Technological University MBA experience. My name is Mila and I am the moderator of this webinar on behalf of Unimy. Please welcome our panelists, Professor Go, Academic Director at NTU, Brinda Jalan, Manager Outreach and Admissions, and two of their successful alumni, Isabel and Harrison. They will be telling us about the educational journey and how acquiring a degree from the Nanyang Technological University can enhance your career. You will be able to send your questions throughout the entire webinar by typing them in the chat box, and our panelists will take the time to give you an answer during the Q&A session in the second half of this event. Okay, let's check the sound now. Can you please write in the chat box if you can hear me? Great, thank you. We can now start with the presentation and our wonderful panelists.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining the webinar for Nanyang Technological University MBA program. My name is Kim Huat, I'm the Academic Director for the MBA program, and with me here today we have two of our alumni, right, Isabel and Harrison. So they graduated in 2017, so they're in the class of 2017 for the MBA program. Later I would introduce them in greater details, but let me jump straight into the matters for today, all right? So there are essentially three things that we're going to talk about today, real briefly. The first is, of course, an overview of the university. I will not spend too much time here because I guess this entire session, the main objective is for you to hear from our alumni, their experiences and their thoughts about the MBA program. Right. So I'll go through the overview pretty briefly, and then we open the discussion with our alumni, and then of course we will also field questions, or rather, you answer the questions that you folks have asked via the chat function that was brief earlier described to you. All right. So a little bit about NTU. Well, if you look at the history of our university, right, the university location, specifically the Nanyang Technological University campus, was founded in 1955. But you observe that this image over here is all grayed out. Well, the reason is because the original campus was created by the Chinese settlers, right? The university back then was a Chinese university. In some time around 1980, right, the Singapore government, but Singapore, as you might know, it's a cosmopolitan country, right? Prior to that, it was a British colony, right? So from the 50s to sometime in 1980s, this Nanyang Technological University was a Chinese university. But around 1980, the government decided to ensure that all universities will only teach in English. And so the university the campus ground was there, but the university was put on hold. In 1991, right, this is where NTU was, I would say, first created. In 1991, it was created as an institute, and shortly, about 2 years later, it became a full-fledged university, I think sometime around 93. So if you look at the very, very short history of the university, right, we were officially founded sometime in 1991. But fast forward 30 years, right, what we are right now, based on QS. QS is an international body that does ranking for university. We are ranked #1 in the world for universities under the age of 50 years, right? And globally, for all universities, this year, in fact, it was released only yesterday, we are ranked number 13, right? So globally, in terms of the university, we are ranked 13 around the world. So if you can see in this very short span of 30 years, many things have came about within the university. We've grown largely just in this short span of 30 years. This is briefly about the university. The MBA program, right? We have the Nanyang MBA program lasts about 12 months. The duration of the entire MBA is a 12-month program. All students typically would do 9 core courses, 4 electives. I will not go into details of that. I believe you folks can get that information online. But the key thing I want to highlight over here is that the MBA program not only has classes that the students are supposed to take, we do have SPAN projects where the students will be immersed in the live consulting project, as well as many other interesting case competitions that the students engage in, right? Quickly, if you look at on this particular MBA program, this is not the only version of the program that we have. We do have some double degree programs, which I'll talk about very, very shortly, but the MBA program itself lasts about 12 months, right? And I think if you look at the curriculum of the MBA program, sometime last year, the business school, went through a series of high-level repositioning, right? And in terms of the classes, we try to sort of move towards 3 key pillars, sort of to differentiate our MBA vis-a-vis the other MBAs you see around the world. In terms of these 3 pillars, which we felt that are the most important to characterize our education, is that these are the following 3 pillars. First is that we want a strong focus on innovation and technology. As you can see today, technology is one very strong driver that's disrupting economies and the world, right? So being a business school within a technological university, we felt that it is the best position for us to leverage on that and to train the prospective students on how do we innovate for the future from the perspective of technology. The second area that we are focusing a fair bit on is about leadership. I think leadership is one key component of all MBA programs, right? Be it NTU or other universities around the world. So leadership is definitely at the center of all MBA programs, and we will continue to build our strengths in the area of leadership. The third aspect that the Nanyang MBA program tries to emphasize on is the whole concept about establishing the focus on Asia as well as a global perspective. To be honest, there are so many MBA programs around the world. If you are a student looking for a prospective MBA program, I would say you're spoiled for choice, right? NTU being located in Singapore, I think we are in a very unique position whereby it's a good blend of the East and the West, right? And as for that particular reason, the Nanyang MBA program is one strong and appropriate program to sort of highlight the uniqueness of Asia, and specifically for our participants that are not from Asia, it gives them a gateway, right, to understand how businesses operate within Asia and so on, right? So these are the 3 key areas that the MBA program is focusing. We started that repositioning sometime last year, and we are sort of in the midst of finalizing the repositioning for this coming intake of students, right, which will start sometime next month, right? I believe this webinar is more for your future information, right? But that's the direction that we are moving. I will have one final thing to talk about the curriculum. I believe a lot of information I talk about here could be found online, so therefore I try to sort of reduce the amount of airtime I'm taking at this point in time, because the key focus for today's webinar is to field questions to our alumni, and of course to let you experience, or rather hear from our alumni in terms of their experiences, right? The other issue that I believe would be of interest to you will be some of the double masters program that we have, right? Most of you folks are probably from the EU region, right? And it's also good for you to understand that we have some partnerships and double degree programs. The Nanyang MBA has 3 partner universities in terms of the double degree programs. The first is with Waseda University, which is a top Japanese university in Tokyo, Shinjuku, Tokyo. That program lasts 14 months, right? So what happens is that the students will take around 10 months of classes in Singapore, and then we have 4 more classes in Tokyo, Japan, right? After that 14 months, you'll graduate with 2 MBAs, one from the NTU and as well one from Waseda. The second double degree program we have is with St. Gallen, University of St. Gallen in Switzerland, right? So this is a double master's program. You will have to complete an MBA in NTU, Singapore, and you will, upon completion of that degree program, you will be moving over to St. Gallen to do a Masters of Science, also Masters of Arts, right, in Strategy and International Management. And then the third double degree program we have is with ESSEC Business School in France, right? It's also 24 months, 12 months in Singapore to complete the MBA with Nanyang, and another 12 months to complete your Masters of Science in Management with ESSEC in France, all right? All 3 double master's program in terms of the fees and whatnot is as per a single degree. You just got to spend more time, right, to sort of complete those courses for that particular purpose, all right? So that's the first item that I have for you today, which is just an overview of the university as well as the programs that we have. And we'll move to the key thing that we are going to do today, which is the panel discussion from our alumni. All right, so we have 2 alumni with us today. I think you can see their faces on the video. The first is Mr. Harrison Moore, right? Mr. Harrison, it's in HSBC today. He's in Hong Kong, graduated in 17, which I've described earlier. And his contemporary, his fellow classmate is Miss Isabel Matthias, right? She's from Bayer. and formerly she's from Germany, and she's still she's back in Germany right now. And as well, she's the graduated from the class of 2017. And of course, that's the last person you see on the list. That's myself, right? And all right, so the next thing I'm going to do is probably to just start off with some questions, right? These questions are specifically to Harrison as well for Isabel. It's more for their perspective in sharing their experiences. And the question that I have here, the first one was, what are the reasons for you to choose the Nanyang MBA program, right? In Singapore, I mean, Harrison is from Britain, Isabel is from Germany. Maybe shed some light to that. Harrison
Ladies
or
first.
Isabel?
Over to you.
All
right. Okay, yeah, then I will go first. So yeah, there were several reasons for me for choosing to go to Singapore.
Harrison, maybe you can take over and Isabel will be right back with us.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And also for the Nanyang MBA. So one of the things was that I was already living abroad, and I also do I have some problems with my connection here? Sorry. Okay. I hope you can hear me well.
Yep, loud and clear.
So, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, I think you're audible right now.
Now my internet connection. Okay, good. Otherwise, I have to turn off my camera. Yeah. So I was wanting to go to Asia to also experience again something new. And for me, it was very interesting with Singapore because it's such a melting pot with a lot of different cultures then also there. And the Nanyang MBA program is, I think, the most international program that I could find then also on the market. So in our year, we were 23 different nationalities and a lot of different also backgrounds with what people have studied and all of those things in there. And yeah, that was really something that was very important for me to also have this exposure, because it's also something that has been already important for my career before the MBA and also now afterwards with working very international. And yeah, I can really just recommend it. So it was the best choice that I've made.
So I guess a little bit from me. I think my choice was based on my father had spent a lot of time in his career in Japan and had always talked very fondly about business in Asia. For me, this was a pretty big driver. I always wanted to come out here and sort of see how business was done. And I think that looking at what the future will hold, I mean, looking at HSBC as an example, I mean, 87% of our profit before tax comes from over this way. So it's not really a surprise that if you want to get experience and you want to take that back either to Europe or maintain a life in Asia, an MBA is a pretty strong choice. I've obviously now stayed over here. My fiance is based in Singapore, so I don't really have very much intention to go back out west. In terms of identifying with Nanyang, for me, I had a little bit of a Google. I used the FT rankings and then sort of saw how well the program had performed in previous years. Also looked up a few people on LinkedIn just to sort of get a sense check. Very similar to Isabel in that sense, that what was the sort of the graphic of people that were the demographic of people that were coming on the program. Super diverse. I think our program was very interesting. You had me who had background in hotels. We had a plastic surgeon. We had people in the military. It was real mixed bag of people, but it really helped us. And I think that's big kudos to the program team putting together such a fantastically diverse group of individuals. And that gave us a lot of value. So yeah, looking back, that was probably one of the highlights.
Okay.
Back to you, sir.
All right. So one of the key things about the MBA programs is some MBA programs are 1 year in duration, some are 2, some are probably 1.5, so on. So I think within NTU itself, our program is it's 1 year, right? So what do you think about that, right? It's 1 year. I mean, is that one of the reasons that you go for it, or and do you find that 1 year it's an appropriate amount of time, too long, too short? I mean, maybe you can shed some light to that, because in the MBA market itself, there's so many different types of MBAs with different durations.
I think we'll get two different lenses on this from Isabel and myself. Certainly me going over, I was I was looking at getting a career out in Asia. So with Bayer, I think Isabel shed a bit of light on her journey's a little bit different to mine, I guess. So 1 year was perfect. 2 years for me was a little bit too long to be out of the workforce. And the structure of the program actually helped me get an internship. So there was how it's set up. The first term or so was very intensive, and then you move to more of an elective module system, which really helped. So you could focus on internship, finding a career, and then moving back into the workforce. For me, 2 years was a little bit too long to be outside of that, and I'd find it difficult to balance for that long.
Yeah, I can also just agree with that, what Harrison was saying in there. So I think 2 years is really a long time, especially with how fast the job market is also changing. And one of the things then that also played an additional role for me is that I was company sponsored. So the company paid for the time there, and I still got salary to live and all of those things. So then it's of course easier to convince them to do that for a year than for 2 years. And for other students who do not have that commitment, the good thing is if you do 1 year, you can always add on more. So because you can extend the stay because you want to have more time for internships and going on the job search. Many also of our year did that also to spend some more time for an internship also to extend, or also if you want to have electives or even do an additional program with one of the partner universities. So then you can end it after 1 year, but you can extend it. Well, if you do go for a 2-year MBA, then you really have to do the whole 2 years. So I think that's also a nice flexibility in there.
Okay, right. Thanks for the answers and insights and from your perspective. So any interesting aspects of the MBA, any interesting highlights? So if I would ask you, what do you remember from your MBA journey, right? What were your key things that come up to your mind? The top 3 lists, the top 3 items on your list, right?
You or me?
Key highlights of
the top 3.
It could be fun stuff, right?
I think the top 3 it's really difficult. Yeah.
It's really difficult.
So there are really so many good memories. So there is one thing, of course, that I always very much cherish in my memory is our more or less living room that we had, the MBA launch, where we spent a lot of time then also in there, of course also studying, but also having get-togethers, playing games and all of those things. So that's really something where where we had really a good time then also all together with the group. The business study mission, that was absolutely a highlight there. So I was one of those who decided to go to Japan. So I was there for 1 week for visiting different companies, but also added then almost another week before that to actually experience Japan also a bit more. It was during Halloween time. So that was really an amazing experience there. And in general, also a lot of the club activities. So business clubs then also in there, where we were talking about the future of how things are evolving, also with women in business and also other topics there, as well as also a lot of social activities. So and I could go on and on.
Okay.
I mean, very similar train of thought. I mean, the non-academic stuff is fantastic, as well as the academic stuff, of course. But I do remember so I was co-chair of the Beer, Wine and Spirits Club. So we did cocktails and we did wine and cheese. That was quite good fun. Also captained the football team. So we actually did a trip over to Hong Kong, played against HKUST, a few other universities as well. Didn't fare too well. It was very hot, but it was good fun. The MBA Olympics as well was also very good fun. That's another great thing that NTU does, which is the universities in Singapore all sort of come together, do fundraising as well as play sport. So that was a really good bit of fun. Academically, the business study mission, I can't believe I completely forgot about that. That was awesome. That trip to Japan. For classes, Pat Gibbons for me was one of my personal favorites. I don't know if he's still on the program, but he was fantastic. He's very dry sense of humor, which resonates very well with me. But the case studies that we use are very interesting, and he keeps people on their toes a little bit, and it's the cases that we use were quite relatable to the people in the room. They weren't very outdated or anything. We were talking about, like, I think Kawasaki and Harley Davidson was one. If you ever get the Otis Lyft's business case, I think it's using about two classes, so that's one to keep under your hat. If you do get into the program, you can leverage a couple of notes on that. But it was, yeah, really good. Really enjoyed him. He was a great lecturer. So certainly missed those classes.
All right, great. So I have one more question for you all before we turn over to the questions to the participants, right? So for the participants, between now and then, if you have any questions, please do type on the chat board on the screen so that we can see those questions. All right, so the third question, meanwhile, for the third question, how has MBA impacted your career so far for both of you, right? So how has it changed your career? Has it brought about some changes towards the path you are sort of envisioning, right, before you get into the MBA program? Specifically to, of course, in the areas of leadership and, of course, and so on, right? Anyone?
Okay. Sure, then I will go ahead.
Ladies first game.
Okay. So yeah, for me, it definitely impacted my career because that so that enabled me to directly also get a salary increase, actually. So that was something that worked out very well with getting the MBA certificate and then increasing this, but also for the work itself. So before that, I was in business intelligence with a lot of different also topics there. So always also changing, and I was doing some change management on the side, I would say more. And then I actually had the opportunity to go full time into organizational change management. And I was also taking then additional electives at NTU then also with managing change in the workplace. And the other one was global management of human capital, which was also then very beneficial for that. And then 2 years, so the 2 years after the end of the MBA, I was then working as a change manager then in there, but also partially then living in the US for some time, and otherwise also with the global network. And so that was also something, the formal education then that also came through the MBA really boosted then also my confidence in that to say, okay, I also have then there are a lot of things that I learned that I can directly apply, and also the overall leadership modules that we have with global leadership, then also where we had several different different professors who were telling us about giving us a lot of helpful case studies and also other activities to better understand our leadership skills and also other people's leadership skills, and also to learn from each other because we were always in different group settings. So there was then always the opportunity to take the lead yourself then also, but also observe how others are leading and learning from that and also reflecting. And this is also something that I've been applying. Now, recently, I actually have been making another job change already. So I've changed then almost a year ago, so it was in September last year, I changed into audit. So I'm now an IT auditor. So that's something also where, where there's also a lot of leadership activities in that sense, because you have to talk to management about what's going well, what's not going well. So, and I think that's also something where I can really say that the MBA helped me with that.
For me, coming out, I have a pretty random career, quite frankly. So I was in hotels and hospitality before I joined the MBA. I used the MBA to pivot into financial services. So post MBA, I moved to Ernst & Young to work in FS advisory. And then I'm now working with HS, and that was in Singapore, and now I'm HSBC Hong Kong. Both times working in a consultant role, so I think you can tell by what things I gained most out of the program, and that was is basically a consultant's toolkit, and being able to sort of think on the job and move from pretty much stakeholder to stakeholder and understand exactly what they want and how to manage that. In terms of the sort of the key things I learned, I think there's boiled down to probably networking for sure. I mean, in hotels and hospitality, I did this already, but actually understanding the value of it in business, and then also how to be a little bit smart with how you network as well and try and join the dots, was a good learning from some of the professors, sort of with a beer after class, not so much during class. Prioritization. I couldn't need to do this task more than I already do today. With the MBA, you are constantly fighting. You have your own personal commitments. You have sport. You have relationship. You have classes, case studies, all sorts going on, and it's a quick year, I can tell you that. At the same time, trying to find a job, and it certainly taught me a lot about that exercise. But I think what you end up with it is a good set of knowledge and formalized knowledge of maybe what you had before, and then a little bit crisper. So when it does come to speaking to rather senior folks, you can understand exactly what they want and then package it in such a way that you can deliver a solution that they will want, and then you can go ahead and proceed with that. It was super valuable for me. We've worked on 2 pretty significant engagements at HSBC since, of which fortunately one of them went live this week, which is great. And then working through the private bank and the retail bank combination at the moment, which is very public, thanks to the Financial Times, about what's going on in HSBC. But yeah, it's great, and I think I wouldn't be here without having done that MBA. So I've got a lot to be thankful for there.
All right, so I guess it's time for the participants, right? If you're listening into the webinar, any questions for the panelists, for myself?
Yes, we have questions for everyone. Starting off with the first one, it's for Harrison and Isabel, and of course, you can share the average numbers for the whole NTU, and you can share, Isabel and Harrison, your specific class. What was the average age of your class?
I think it was 28. The average,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What a memory of you. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I think right.
Yeah, but we had a range from, I think, 22 to 39 approximately. Yeah.
Okay, maybe Brinda and Professor Go can share some average numbers for Nanyang as a whole.
All right, sure. So in terms of the MBA program, the typical cohort size for every year is around 80, right? So that's a typical cohort size. In terms of the age the average is around 28, right? The participants generally have around 6 years of work experience on average. The minimum, although is 2 years, typically we don't have that many students with only 2 years of work experience. Largely on, I would say 4 to 6 is probably a safe side in terms of the distribution of number of work years of work experience. Of course, different countries, I mean, depending on where they are from, some nationalities, they tend to be a bit much older, like for example, if they're Koreans, because they got to serve national service and whatnot, right? So the average work experience, probably around 6 years is pretty safe for that, right? I think in terms of the distribution of the industries they are from, I think Harrison had mentioned that earlier in one of the panel discussion. It's very diverse, right? We have all sort of industries, right? We have folks from banking getting out of banking. We have folks from non-banking going into banking, right? In all directions, right? So, and of course, we have folks there in healthcare as well. And yeah, it's just like, in terms of the geographical coverage, it's just like a mini United Nations, right? In terms of the kind of industries, it's just like a mini economy of sorts, right? So we have folks from services, manufacturing, and so on and so forth, right? In terms of the schools, the size of the school, so the MBA is pretty small, right? So we have around 80 for the full-time MBA program. But the university is not small. The university is large. We have around close to 30,000 students in the school at any point in time. Right? The MBA is one program that we have. It's small, but the university is large. It's one of the largest campus you can have within Asia itself.
Thank you so much. We are moving on to the next question, and I think that it's more of the admission side. Considering the one-year MBA, how much time do students get to look for jobs before their student visa expires?
Sure, I can answer that. I mean, I think a couple of things to keep in mind. One is typically the student pass that we provide. Typically, it may change from year to year based on the MOM's guidelines as the Ministry of Manpower. But yeah, typically it would be 18 months, which is 12 months of the program and an additional 6 months. That's one thing to keep in mind. However, I think also just to note that, as Harrison was saying, it's an intensive one-year program. So you kind of need to be like, you know, networking, doing the job hunt early on. You can't be waiting right till the end. So just want to reinforce that we encourage students to really get the ground running as they start the program. But yeah, technically, it's typically 18 months.
Thank you. Maybe Harrison and Isabella can share your personal experience with finding a job right after graduation. I know Isabel was actually recruited during this, but Harrison?
Sure. I mean, I will echo the point. You are trying to get a job, right? If you want to stay in Singapore or if you want to stay in region, and the program is very good at being able to give you that opportunity in order to go out and do career search. I think this boils down to what I was saying before about just networking. There are a few events when we were there that the MBA program put on in order for us to network. You do also have a SPAN program, so you do go out and work with a company. And then there's the business study mission, both in, I don't know if it is the same, but when we did it, but in Singapore and abroad. So there's also the opportunity there to go out and meet companies. But it's really on yourself to sort of go out there, network, meet people, and sort of get a bit of an understanding of where the job market is. But there is absolutely every opportunity to go out and do job search. I worked for a cloud consultancy company whilst I was on the program, so it's 2 days a week as part of your student pass. Please correct me if I'm wrong there. And then and from there it was sort of again about meeting people, and then I was fortunate enough to get through the program at EY and start. But there's definitely a lot of time and energy, and you should be okay as long as you go for it.
Yeah, it's just to add to that, that I think it has to be a proactive effort. The school provides enough resources. Our careers office provides a lot of resources and support, including one-on-one career coaching. So you have a dedicated career coach who's typically an industry professional with 20, 25 years of work ex, and that person's really kind of helping you create a career strategy and roadmap, like what your actionable steps should be during the MBA and after the MBA. So that kind of support and resources are provided, but it's really what you make of it. So yeah, I think utilizing these various opportunities, including the SPAN project, which is the life consulting project, that's what we encourage to be more proactive. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the next question, and again, I think you all have what to say about it. How does the university support the international students in order to adapt to a new style of living? Maybe, Vrinda, we can start with the university point of view and then move on to Isabel and Harrison. They can share their personal experience.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, Prof, please go ahead.
Brenda, go ahead. It's okay.
I mean, I think we all have different perspectives on it, but I would say I think there's a lot when it comes to the sort of cultural integration, and it starts as early as orientation, where there are constant different opportunities for you to interact with your classmates, with our various teams, our faculty members. So that integration, so to speak, starts right early on, and I think then. Just the sort of support from the community, as well as you can reach out to even alumni. I mean, that's just really my perspective, but I think maybe Isabel and Harrison would be able to give you more details on how they got acclimatized or integrated into the Singapore environment.
So Harrison, maybe Harrison and Isabel, you can share your personal experience.
Sure. I guess is she trying to speak? I can't see.
Go ahead.
So, there you go. So I think the orientation was quite entertaining. From what I do recall. I remember we went out to near Changi and we tried to build rafts, from what I remember, which was quite funny. And you quickly see who are the leaders, so to speak, and who are the people which like to talk a lot but maybe don't build rafts too well. So that was quite good fun. And it's sort of the light-hearted nature at the beginning sort of puts everybody on a level footing. I mean, it's not just someone coming from Europe going over to Asia. I think the vast majority of people, significant majority actually, I think there was only maybe like 6 or 8 people from Singapore on the actual program, had come from overseas. So quite a lot of people are feeling a little bit uneasy, maybe first time away to a country so far away. And having that kickoff really helped. There's also, if you haven't been to Singapore before and you haven't experienced this, but hawker centers, there's very canteen orientated lifestyle over at Nanyang. So where you sort of go around from stall to stall, pick up your chicken rice, sit down, and then lo and behold, somebody's talking to you. So it's a very communal space, which makes things a lot easier. And I really thought that I didn't feel too uncomfortable, quite frankly, coming from somewhere so far away and then settling in Singapore. I thought the program was set up for it, as was the university.
Thank you. We can now move
So what I remember is what was very helpful.
Yes, Isabel, sorry about that.
Sorry, yeah. I think so what I was just wanting to add in, that it was just very helpful also how welcoming everyone was. So it was very well organized at the beginning about so what to take care of, but then also the we had around 10% Singaporean students also in our program, and taking us to the hawker centers and barbecuing and all of those things, and made it a lot easier to get accustomed to everything.
Thank you. Another more general question to Harrison and Isabel. What made you decide to take MBA? What made you choose NTU out of some top MBA schools in Asia? Isabel, maybe ladies first.
Okay, sure. So for me, it was so of course I was looking a little bit at the ratings, but also more about the programs of the university. I actually had already a pre-selection because the company, so there were 5 top universities in the world that I could apply to. And so then in Asia, it were 2 different ones. So it was the SEEPs in Shanghai and an NTU then in Singapore. And for me, it was then that I liked the program more than also in Singapore with the location and everything, that I decided to go there. And also that it's in such a big university in there, also with very different prestigious fields also. So that was something that made it stand out to me.
Just quick clarify. So it's 2 parts, right? Why Singapore and why NTU, is it? Yeah. So I mean, why Singapore for me? I think at the beginning. I mean, for me, it makes perfect sense. You've got Singapore and Hong Kong as 2 of the big global centers of business in Asia. You've got an awful lot of talent coming into Asia as well, predominantly in these two cities. Obviously, I mean, the choice was made in 2016, not made in 2020. So, I mean, I'm in Hong Kong at the moment, so obviously protesting, etc., will probably sway your mind a little bit towards Singapore. But for me, Singapore just stood out. I mean, it's super clean, super structured. Getting around in Singapore is unbelievably easy. And for me, Singapore was a standout choice. It was between HKUST and Nanyang for me. NUS as well was on the radar, but quite frankly, I was a little bit more. I was a bit more convinced with NTU. They were very, very welcoming from day one. The emails that were sent were quite friendly between the admissions department and myself. So again, makes you feel wanted and makes you think, oh, great, cool. I'm going to go to a spot where it's actually quite valuable. And I guess in terms of why NTU, I mean, that's pretty explanatory. Other than the ratings, of course, and diversity of the program. But no, it was the right choice at the right time, and I'm still pretty chuffed that I went to NTU.
Thank you so much. Moving on again, some local time questions. Is accommodation easy to obtain in Singapore? Of course, if there's any accommodation provided by the NTU, we can share that with us as well. Maybe Isabel, again, ladies first, we can start with your experience.
So I decided to live on campus, which was then also the easiest thing to arrange then there. So that worked out really well. So there is just a certain deadline that you have to apply to then, and choose between which graduate hall you want to live in. But that one was then a very easy process to also do from the other side of the world in there. And there were some others in our class who also moved then off campus somewhere, either found it already or also then first were living in the student dormitories then there and then moved out afterwards. I think I would move in again on campus. Because it was just very convenient. So I had a small room with my own bathroom, so I didn't have to share that. And then it's so it's just directly on campus. You can easily take the bus to go around. And also if you need to do then some work, it's just a lot easier than if you need to do late evening case studies and so on with your peers, if they are also all staying close to you.
Certainly will echo the late night case studies. Being on site at NTU it certainly makes a lot of sense. Certainly in the first trimester or so, you have a lot of core classes, which you obviously can't evade at all, which have an awful lot of commitments. Finance and accounting, given my background, obviously weren't my strongest suit, so I probably I found it very valuable to be on site and have a lot of banking folks around me that could help me understand these quite a lot of the complex problems. I then took, I guess for the second half, I took the decision to actually move off campus because the program, there's a lot of electives that you can take, and you can actually maneuver those to into the later half, so around 6 p.m. so you can do the job during the day or a half day. And then Saturday classes as well. There was Saturday morning classes, so I could take some of those as well, which then freed up the rest of my week as I was sort of focusing around internship and trying to find a job. So in terms of initially finding accommodation on campus, yeah, as Isabel said, very, very easy, and would certainly recommend it. In terms of finding accommodation outside, was pretty easy, quite frankly. I mean, my fiance is there, so she is Singaporean, so I just moved in with her for the second half. And I know of a very close friend of mine's like a head of marketing for Hamlet, so there's a lot of co-living spaces now popping up in Singapore. I don't know if this would also be an option. Leave that to the powers on the call who are a little bit more informed on this stuff than I am probably. But there's definitely options there if you did want to look outside of staying on campus, but certainly wouldn't recommend it for the first term. It would be pretty tough unless you're staying in a place near to the university.
I just wanted to quickly add two things. One is, like you both said, it's easy, right? And our admissions team actually sends you a handbook which will outline the process for on-campus as well as off-campus housing, give you all the relevant links. So once your admission is confirmed, all that support is provided by the admissions team. And the other thing I was going to say is on campus, like Isabel said, there's a bus that goes around, but there's there's a supermarket, so there's groceries, and there's a clinic, pharmacy, there are tons of restaurants, so like all your sort of needs are taken care of on campus itself. So we do keep that in mind. So it's actually definitely convenient to live on campus, at least in the first trimester.
Thank you. We are going to go to the next question, and I think it's more of an admissions one. Does NTU offer scholarships, and will an early application increase my chances of getting one?
I can share my perspective, and then Prof, maybe you can share yours. But yes, we do offer quite a few scholarships, and I would, maybe I can share the link on the chat, so maybe the participants can check out the scholarship page on our website. But yeah, our scholarships are merit-based, and they're partial typically. We do have a few full scholarships, but the idea is that it really, we take your overall profile into account, keeping in mind various aspects. With respect to increasing your chances if you apply early, I don't think scholarship is just related to that. We do have scholarship deadlines, so we definitely encourage you to follow that. But I would say overall, as international applicants, we definitely recommend applying in the earlier rounds rather than later rounds. Just that gives you, a level playing field is one, and two is, I would say, just when you have to kind of get the logistics sorted out, the later you apply, it gets too close to coming onto campus. So even from that perspective, you want to sort it out a little earlier. But that's just an overall admission thing. I don't think it's a direct correlation of applying early equals to a higher chance at scholarship. That is purely based on your profile. Anything you'd like to add to that, Prof?
I would say that answer is spot on. There are strict guidelines for scholarship. So typically what happens is that all scholarships assessment will go through the scholarship board, right? So there are very, very strict guidelines, and timing by and large will not play any factor. But of course, if you're going to delay to too late, I think many other issues will come in, and they are not related to scholarships. It's how do you sort of rearrange your life, and you got to leave. If, for example, you're likely not to be from Singapore, right? So relocating part usually takes some time. And we do have classes that prep courses starting pretty early in June, right? So I think during the time where Harrison and Isabel were taking classes, we do have prep classes then as well, but now we have even earlier prep classes. So things are ramping up as we speak, right? So what happens is that you need to have some lead time rather, getting into the whole scheme of things again, doing an MBA.
Thank you. On the note of admissions, can you, Prof. and Brinda, share with us some details on what can be expected from the admissions process? And maybe Harrison and Isabel, you can give us some more personal experience afterwards with your admissions process.
So sorry, just to clarify, are we looking at what our admissions like application requirements are, or the admissions process? I'm a little unclear.
Yes, application requirements and how to prepare for interviews and the admissions process as well.
Okay, and that's maybe another thing I can do. I can share a link of an admissions webinar we had done, which kind of goes into a lot of details of the admissions process. But just to, if I have to sum it up, well, I think we're looking at three main pillars, if I can call them. One becomes your academic aptitude, which you can view through your undergraduate performance as well as your GMAT or GRE score. So that's the academic bit. The second is your work experience, but not just purely from do you have the 3 years or not, but have you created impact in the role that you've been? Has there been career progression? And I would say the third bit is the leadership. And I don't mean have you led teams, because we don't expect each person to have been in a leadership role, but do you have a proactive strategic outlook, and have you gone maybe above and beyond the scope of your role to create impact? So do you display or demonstrate leadership skills? I would say maybe these would be three main pillars or areas that we look at in your application. And just a quick thing on requirements, again, that's on our website. But as Prof was saying earlier, our minimum is 2 years work experience. However, our average has been 5 to 6 years. So work experience, an undergraduate degree with a good undergraduate performance. And then the actual materials, typically we have an online application, we have 2 letters of recommendation, professional letters of recommendation that we want you to get from your ideally current employer or maybe previous employer. There are essays and your resume. Broadly, these would be the sort of requirements for the application process. Of course, there's a whole bunch of other documents, but that is more of the technical stuff, and that's again all on the website. So.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Isabel, can you share your personal experience with the admissions process and maybe give some tips on the future applicant?
Yeah, sure. So for me, the process started with the GMAT, I would say, because so I already had to take it in 2013 because it was also a requirement for the program at Bayer that I was in. And then you can already enter the universities that you would be interested in. And of course, I put then NTU in there as well. So, and then afterwards,
I think Isabel's connection dropped again, so maybe
I also got the reminders. So I signed up then there to also have then that I have the reminders about when are the rounds for applications, and then also any kind of info sessions. So that was kind of the. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now better?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So I'm just turning off my camera. Can you hear me now a little bit better? Okay, good. Then I will just do it without camera to have a better connection. So so as I said before, so the GMAT was then the entry point there, and I was then later on. I first had to go through an internal confirmation at the company that I was in, saying, okay, I can apply to the university, and also within, so say, okay, this is my favorite one, where they also first had to confirm that I was allowed to apply there, and that I would be sponsored. And I was then applying for the second round, so also to have still a little bit of buffer in between before the start of the program. And then yeah, as it was said before, and also as you can find on the yeah, on the website there, so you have to have the recommendation letters, you have to write essays, and all of those things. I think it's very well outlined yeah, on the website.
In terms of top tips, apply early. I mean, from when we did it, I think there was 3 rounds: round 1, round 2, round 3. I think round 1, round 2 is your best opportunity, really. Your round 3 is sort of last minute, and that's not just for this MBA program. That's pretty much for most MBA programs, that they do have 3 rounds, and they all manner of consultants that will advise you on applications will all say the same thing. You want to be applying around round 1 and round 2. And it also gives you a bit of peace of mind as well, knowing where you're going to go in that sort of amount of time beforehand, as opposed to frantic at the last bit trying to get in, and then you've got to think about, oh wow, I need to move to Singapore now. That's another complexity. So certainly being a little bit more prepared will help.
Thank you. So to wrap it up, maybe Vrinda and Pravgo, you can share some admissions dates for the next round that are coming up, so anyone who would like to start their application can have that in mind.
Sure. So our application typically for the following year, sorry, will open in September 2020, and our first round deadline is November 1st. The second round is Jan 15th, and the third round is March 31st. Again, all of these dates are already on our website. But yeah, the earliest would be November 1st.
Okay, thank you. So we are now going to wrap up, and thank you so much to our wonderful panelists for the informative presentation. Thank all of you for attending this webinar. To those whose questions were not answered, we will send you the answer via email privately soon. So you will also receive a link with the recording of the whole webinar so you can rewatch it. On behalf of Unimy team, we wish you luck in your academic journey. And again, Isabel, Vrinda, Harrison, and Pravgo, thank you so much for this wonderful webinar.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mila, and
Thank you.
thank you. Bye.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah, folks.